The World Is Not Enough is a 1999 spy film on the 19th in the James Bond series produced by Eon Productions and the third to star Pierce Brosnan as the fictional MI6 agent James Bond. It was directed by Michael Apted from the original story and screenplay by Neal Purvis, Robert Wade and Bruce Feirstein. It was produced by Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli. The title is a translation of the motto on the Bond family coat of arms, seen first and honour Her Majesty's Secret Service. The film's plot revolves around the assassination of billionaire Sir Robert King by terrorist Renard and Bond's subsequent assignment to protect King's daughter Elektra, who was previously held for ransom by Renard. During his assignment, Bond unravels a scheme to increase petroleum prices by triggering a nuclear meltdown in the waters of Istanbul. Filming locations included Spain, France, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. The film received mixed reviews, with the plot and Denise Richards' casting frequently targeted for criticism. It did, however, receive praise for the performances of Brosnan and Sophie Marceau and for its emotional weight and focus on characters in comparison to previous entries. The World Is Not Enough earned $361.8 million worldwide. It was also the first Eon-produced Bond film officially released under the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer label instead of United Artists, the franchise's original owner and distributor. In November of 1997, a month prior to the release of Tomorrow Never Dies, Barbara Broccoli watched a news report on Nightline detailing how the world's major oil companies were vying for control of untapped oil reserves in Caspian Sea in the wake of the Soviet Union's collapse, and suggested that controlling the only pipeline from the Caspian to the west would be an appropriate motivation for a potential Bond villain. She and Michael G. Wilson hired screenwriters Neal Purvis and Robert Wade to work on the film, following their work on Plunkett and McLean. Purvis and Wade would eventually write or co-write all of the following Bond films up to No Time to Die. The screenwriter's retake of a lot of the stuff was from an aborted story, Reunion with Death, an eventual installment planned in 1993 for Timothy Dalton as Bond. Broccoli was especially impressed by the writer's suggestion of a female main villain, stating that with Elektra, Bond thinks he has found Tracy, but he's really found Blofeld. Peter Jackson was initially offered the opportunity to direct the film. Barbara Broccoli enjoyed Jackson's Heavenly Creatures, and the screening of The Frighteners was arranged for her. She disliked the latter film, however, and showed no further interest in Jackson. Jackson, a lifelong Bond fan, remarked that Eon tended to go for less famous directors, and that he would likely not get another chance to direct a Bond film after the success of Lord of the Rings. Barbara Broccoli also was in talks with Alfonso Cuarón to direct, who nearly accepted. Hoping to find a director capable of eliciting strong performances from women, producers eventually hired Michael Apted, as his work with Sissy Spacek in Coal Miner's Daughter, Sigourney Weaver in Gorillas in the Mist, and Jodie Foster in Nell had earned all three actresses Oscar nominations, with Spacek winning. Apted's then-wife, Dana Stevens, did get an uncredited rewrite, primarily to strengthen the female characters' roles, before Bruce Feirstein, who had worked in the two previous films, was hired to work on Bond's role. Initially, the film was to be released in 2000, rumoured to be titled Bond 2000. Others rumoured the title to include Death Waits for No Man, Fire and Ice, Pressure Point, and Dangerously Yours. The eventual title, World Is Not Enough, is an English translation from the Latin phrase, Obius non sufficient, the motto of Bond's supposed real-world ancestor, Sir Thomas Bond. In the novel On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and in its film adaptation, it is first claimed to be James Bond's family motto as well. The phrase, Obius non sufficient, is thought to originate from the Pharsalia by Lucan. It appears twice, both with an uncomplimentary associations. The first reference is to a group of villainous mutineers, and the second is to the ambitious Julius Caesar. It was then applied to Alexander the Great by Juvenal in his collection of satirical poems, the Satires. The world is not big enough for Alexander the Great, but a coffin was, he would say. Phrased as non-sufficient orbis, it became the motto of the Spanish king, King Philip II, after ascending to the Portuguese throne in 1580. Sophie Marceau was cast in the lead role of Elektra King. She, of course, most famously had starred in Braveheart in 1995, though Sharon Stone and Vera Farmiga were also considered for the role before Broccoli saw Marceau's performance in Firelight. Robert Carlyle was then cast as Victor Renard Serkis. Before casting Carlyle, the role was offered to Javier Bardem, who would later portray the Bond villain in Skyfall. Most controversially, Denise Richards was cast in the role of Dr. Christmas Jones, an American nuclear physicist assisting Bond in his mission. Richards stated that she liked the role because it was brainy, athletic, and had depth of character. In contrast to Bond girls from previous decades, she said. Richards stated that a lot of the viewers made fun of the character's attire, but these Bond girls are so outrageous, and if I didn't really look like a scientist, the Bond fans would have been disappointed, she would go on to say. Jones was originally written as a French-Polynesian insurance investigator before the studio insisted on changing her nationality after casting Marceau. Tiffany Tierson also auditioned. This would also be Desmond Llewellyn's final performance as Q. Although the actor was not officially retiring from the role, the Q character was training his eventual replacement in the film, namely R, here played by John Cleese. Then, on December 19th, 1999, Llewellyn was driving alone from a book signing event when his Renault Megane collided head-on with the Fiat Bravo on the A27 near the village of Berwick in East Sussex. Llewellyn sustained massive internal injuries and was airlifted by helicopter to Eastbourne District General Hospital, where he died soon after at the age of 85. Llewellyn's death occurred 3 weeks after the premiere of World Is Not Enough. Roger Moore, who starred with Llewellyn in 6 of his 7 Bond films, spoke at his funeral on January 6, 2000 at the St Mary the Virgin Church in Battle, Sussex. The service was followed by a private cremation at Hastings Crematorium, with the ashes given to Llewellyn's family. This was the second soundtrack to be composed by David Arnold. Arnold broke tradition by not ending the film with the reprise of the opening theme, or as with the previous 3 films, a new song. Originally, Arnold intended to use a song, Only Myself to Blame, at the end of the film. However, Apted discarded this, and the song was replaced by a remix of the James Bond theme. Only Myself to Blame was written by Arnold and Don Black and sung by Scott Walker. It is the 19th and final track on the album that is a melody in Electric King's theme. The title song, The World Is Not Enough, was written by David Arnold, with Don Black and performed by Garbage. It is the 5th Bond theme co-written by Black, preceded by Thunderball, Diamonds Are Forever, The Man with the Golden Gun, and Tomorrow Never Dies. IGN chose The World Is Not Enough as the 9th best James Bond theme of all time. In 2012, Grantland ranked the song as the 2nd best Bond song of all time, behind only Goldfinger. Another theme song was made by English post-Britpop band Straw, which was also titled The World Is Not Enough, but was rejected in favour of Garbage's song. The song is unique as the lyrics contain references to several of Ian Fleming's novels, including references to Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and Live and Let Die. Now, ironically, even though this film was heavily criticised, it's my favourite in the Pierce Brosnan James Bond films. For me, it's a much darker and heavier take than these other films, and I particularly enjoyed here the performance of Sophie Marceau as Elektra King. She delivers a layered performance here, capturing her character's emotional complexity and hidden motives, as does Robert Carlyle here in his portrayal of Renard, adding an element of genuine menace to the film. In the same breath, though, he invokes some sort of sympathy as well. Also, the idea of him not feeling pain makes him a formidable antagonist. The themes of trust and betrayal, of power and greed, and of course, female empowerment all play into the film very well. For me, the director Michael Apted brings a more character-focused approach to the film, emphasizing the emotional depth alongside the expected action sequences that you get in Bond films. I also love the cinematography, which captures the variety of stunning locations perfectly, from the snow-covered mountains of Kazakhstan to the cityscapes of Istanbul. Not to mention, of course, the fantastic score here by David Arnold and the wonderful theme song performed by Garbage. Now, those are all the things I liked. Unfortunately, there are aspects I have to criticize. The pacing occasionally falters, and the chemistry between Bond and certain characters, most notably Christmas Jones, but that's more down to Denise Richards' absolutely appalling acting, really does fall short at times. And if there is really one big misstep in this whole film, I spoke about female empowerment earlier in the terms of the character of Elektra King, but unfortunately, the film almost contradicts itself in casting Denise Richards as Christmas Jones. Firstly, the name is awful, her character is just pointless, and really it just adds nothing to the overall story. That is really a big misstep in this whole film. I suppose I also look back on this film with nostalgia, as of course it was Desmond Llewellyn's last film in the series as the iconic character Q. And even though he always played a minor role within every Bond film, he was just a reassuring presence on screen. Look, The World Is Not Enough is by no means a classic. It's a good, solid Bond film, with action, intrigue, and fantastic style. And I suppose from my point of view, I look back on it sort of with nostalgia and fondness for some reason. Overall, the acting is good from the main leads, with the exception of Denise Richards. And the story, I felt, was a little bit more deeper, and the film a lot more emotional than usual. And for that reason, it stands out in Pierce Brosnan's James Bond films. The World Is Not Enough gets an 8.5 out of 10.